What's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of Bullets, Barbells, and Barbecue. I'm your host, Brett. I have Chris, the artist formerly known as Heavy C. I got Matt, 75 hard, start over. And I got Tanner, the head. We got our show partners, Elite Nutrition Omaha. Check them out, elitenutritionomaha.com. Use code B3 at checkout. If you go to their fine store, go to the store and yell B3 when you walk in.
Get a free shaker.
Perfect. Also have
Tanner, what do you get?
tell them what they get.
A free shaker.
We also have Rosewood Block. They make the best cutting boards and barbecue, pre-made, custom order, whatever you want to do. Check them out, rosewoodblock.com. Use code B3 at checkout for 10% off.
I've been just cutting random shit on it, like
Still?
for no reason. Yeah, just throw everything on there.
Okay.
Fuck yeah, I get it.
Fucking use it for everything.
Yeah.
Use the big cleaver.
Did you see that giant cleaver that was it? Is that Dahlstrong or whatever that knife company is? They made that gigantic cleaver, like the size of probably Tanner's head, actually.
That's unliftable.
Gee, that's a big fucking cleaver.
Yeah, they had it like on their Valentine's Day thing. They made like 200 of them. Yeah, it's like fucking Milder out
guillotine,
there.
buddy.
Yeah, it was pretty huge. This guy, and then it came with this big wood like fucking mount to set it on your counter.
I might have to get that.
They only made so many, so
No, maybe not.
Wield the cleaver. I've always liked that word, wield.
yeah, when you're dual wielding something.
Yeah, I like to wield it. Yeah. Can you wield it? This just sounds cool, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking to myself.
If you build it, if you wield it, she will come.
Ooh, maybe. I see what he did there.
Maybe
Can't wait to go home and wield some wiener, you know?
yours or
No, whatever. He loves good love, man.
It's 2024, whatever.
I'm not trying to get $1 million or anything.
That's true.
I think you said $20, wasn't it?
Dude, back to that, the $1 million thing. So
We're going to go back to
Oh shit!
no, so my mom was telling me, she was listening to it, and she's like, what's crazy is like back in the day, like when your dad and I were talking, like what could we live off of? I think you were here, Matt, weren't you? And she was like, we could do like 100,000. She said, what'd you say? Banks were paying like 9% interest.
Yeah.
She's like, with 100,000, we could like retire.
but a mortgage was also like 16% interest.
When
Yeah.
is this?
It would have been, I mean, it was before I was born, so probably 45 years ago, something like that. Whatever that was they were talking about. But yeah, she was like, yeah, we were like, oh, like 100 grand. We could retire.
That'd have been nice to live in that. That's probably the same time that you could buy a house for.
30.
Yeah.
I think you could like,
I think
you
my
could probably
parents'
custom
first house was like $25,000.
You could probably custom build a house for like 30,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they did have like 18.5% interest
Yeah, like
on that.
interest was crazy.
$25,000.
well, and like I think you could buy farmland for like a couple $100 an acre.
yeah.
Yeah, that was great because she's like, yeah, it's just crazy how time is, but that's what back in the day, that's what they said they could have retired off of, was 100 grand. But they were
Those would
probably,
have been nice times.
but like Matt said, the interest rate, but they're probably making 15 to 17,000 a year,
Right.
maybe 20, and that was probably like a high end job.
Yeah, but if you adjust for Biden inflation, I mean, that's probably like $1.2
Oh yeah,
billion.
yeah,
Don't ask him about it, though.
yeah.
He couldn't tell you about it anyways.
Oh no,
No.
not the slightest clue.
Where am I?
We can't prosecute you because you're mentally feeble.
That's
However,
literally what that said. I don't.
like how insulting is that? Like,
When you're not going to jail, so
He wouldn't know if he was there anyway.
Yeah.
all right,
Yeah. Anyway,
$100,000,
that would have been good money.
45 years ago. Yep.
Yeah. I was getting on the interstate yesterday, and I flipped this guy off because he felt the need to speed around me to get on the interstate, and I knew he wasn't going to keep up with me on the interstate. So as soon as I fucking got next to him, just put it up against the window, and then I thought to myself, I wonder where that came from. So I asked the old talk box, and then I was talking to Matt about it. But yeah, like in the 1400s, the middle finger started because in war they would cut off archers' middle finger and index finger. And then you were saying that the ones who had the finger still.
yeah, like specifically the English longbow was like a huge advantage for the English in war because of just the range and stuff they could get with it. And so if you were an English bowman and you were captured, they would cut off. I had heard it was at least the middle finger, but it sounds like maybe both. but they would cut them off, and so that way you're pretty much useless as a bowman anymore. So they'd still keep you as a prisoner of war, but if like you got out or something happened, like you're not going to be a bowman. You're going to be a 2-fingered guy, maybe swinging an axe or something. And so to kind of like, I don't know, say fuck you to whoever they were fighting, all the English bowmen started flipping people off and give them the bird to show like, hey, I still have my middle finger. Therefore, I can rain arrows on you, and you can do nothing about it.
I mean, that's a pretty cool story about how like, yeah, and it's a universal language now.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
you can flip people off in any country,
Yeah,
and
and they
everyone
know.
knows who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, because then I looked into it some more before you had said that part, and then they said it was more of like a phallic thing, where like the middle finger was like the wiener, and your other fingers were like the balls, and you're like basically like you're a dick.
I mean, also true.
That story's not near as good as the cutting somebody's fucking middle finger off because they can
Right.
shoot a bow.
I'm gonna go with that one. That's a better story to tell.
That is a better story.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So all that, I'm flipping that guy off the interstate just to know that you know what, I can still shoot a bow.
Yeah.
Just telling him, you know,
You're so thoughtful back then in those medieval times.
Yeah.
just letting him know, hey, I can still shoot you.
I also read somewhere that the reason the staircases are curved like that is because if you're an invader and the staircase goes to the left, if most people are right-handed.
Oh.
It's hard for you to fight.
To fight or shoot
Yeah,
around.
it's hard for you to have a sword in your hand, and when you're trying to go left around up a stairwell, so it's a lot easier to defend.
When you're coming down.
Yeah.
Or when you're at the top.
Yeah,
That
and I was like, oh, that's
Some of the
really-
ingenuity that went into like those castles and ramparts was pretty sweet.
Yeah,
I mean, the drawbridge was crucial. Can you
Well, that-
imagine, like,
and-
you're chasing after somebody, they just, like, fucking bring the bridge up, and you're like, well, go fuck yourself. There's a bunch of gators down there in the moat, so have a good time. Game over. And then you're just, like, standing there, you're like, oh, man.
or when they were trying to like break the door down, and they would just like pour oil on them. Like,
pour oil or like boiling hot water or
Yeah.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're not going to shoot through the stone.
No.
Right.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. I think some of that stuff. So even one of my uncles who still lives in Norway is a big like history buff, and so we were over there and he was taking us around showing us these things, and he showed this like Viking era village and was telling us why. So when you look at all the houses, all the door frames are like 4.5 feet high, maybe 5 foot high, and then you step inside and it's maybe an 8 to 10 inch drop down to the floor. And they did that specifically if someone tried to invade into your house, they would have to duck to get in
And then fall.
So it puts them at a disadvantage. And then they also had a step down that puts them at another disadvantage, because even if they come in and they try to, like, they either have to take a big step in or they have to come ducked in and like be down in like a super like well positioned squat. And so it was just all about defending their house, was just how their door was built.
Until the army of midgets showed up.
They still got the drop though. That's what gets them. That protects you from
the
them.
hobbits are here.
Yeah,
We're in trouble.
They still get the drop.
We were actually looking this up yesterday. There were like 7 to 10 different human type creatures on the planet at one time. Like all those stories where you talk about hobbits and like the different types of like hobbits, dwarves, ogres, like those were probably just stories of different like types of humanoids that were on the planet.
Well, so, like, do you think an ogre was just like a fat person?
No,
Well, because there was what, like the
They think-
Denisovians was one of them, and
Denisovians, Neanderthals,
yeah.
Homo naladi, the Flores people, the Flores man.
Couldn't you just ask some of your Neanderthal family that was around then?
Right. So,
you guys gotta have it in your picture book.
well, so they think that Neanderthals, because they were bigger, stronger than humans, hairy, that those may have just been ogres. Like if you were thinking about it and you were fighting someone who was like 7 foot tall, like they would look like a freaking giant.
That's what I'm saying. So do you think they're actually different species, or was it just
No,
like
they were different species.
it was just a tall human with like a giant skull? Like
No.
yours?
They're actually different species.
There were like 7 to 10 different species on the planet at the same time. We're the only ones that survived.
Except the Sasquatch.
Well, and maybe those. Have you heard about that island like off the coast of? Where's
Is
it?
this
at?
Epstein's Island?
No,
Oh, because that's got weird stuff there too.
that does have some weird shit. But those are all just rich liberals on that island.
We keep going back.
There's an island like I think off the coast of Africa, that no one can enter. Like they have tried to get on it and they just get like bowed down. Like no one can get on this island. They don't know. There's this tribe there, and they don't know what they are, like what kind of, like if they're straight Homo sapien or whatnot. They just like, murder people.
Get them paratroopers in there.
They just pretty much leave them alone now. Like some people have tried to like peacefully make contact, and they just
Like,
get
fuck
bowed.
you, yeah.
They just get bowed down on the beach.
Wow. Speaking of being unhealthy and overweight, Chris, you're overweight, right?
Allegedly.
Went to your physical.
Yeah, basically.
Did you cry?
No, I didn't because I don't feel fat.
Did he tell you you were?
It's all about how you
Same,
feel.
brother, same.
It's all about how
Did he
feel
tell you
these
you were
days.
actually fat, or he said you're obese on the BMI?
Basically, he said that from the BMI scale, I'm at like a high 20, 30 or something. He goes, so technically you're obese.
Did he say obese or a beast?
No. He
Okay.
was like
No
basically
T.
talking about the old BMI scale, and then he looks at me and he goes, but you would probably need a scan to see what your actual...
If a doctor ever
5%.
told me that, I would fire his ass on the spot and be like,
Well,
"You obviously don't know your ass from
I
a
think
hole
he
in
was
the
just
ground."
going off the... I like this doctor, so he's probably just going off like the chart, but he's like, you know, whatever. I don't
They're
think it
so
really
fucking
matters.
dumb.
So that BMI, I think it says I have to weigh like 150 pounds.
You know,
I bet it's less than that actually, because I think
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be like $180,
yeah,
$185.
I think at like 5'10", you're supposed to weigh like 170.
Yeah, I think it's 150, 145, something like that. I'm like, how? I don't even, can't even imagine what I'd look like if I weighed 145 pounds.
So the only reason the BMI exists is for insurance companies where they were just being lazy fucks and they wanted to rate you. Back before Obamacare, everyone got rated for health insurance, right? So like if you were a 22-year-old man, you obviously like you're paying like $70 a month for insurance.
I was way fatter at 22. Like
well, then you being obese at 22, that would-
morbidly obese.
they would charge you more. But
Yeah.
it was just an insurance. It was just a way for insurance companies to easily rate people, and it's freaking dumb. Basically, it only works for people who are like skinny fat. Like if you were like you're a gamer and like you have no muscle and you just like a little like bitch boy, then it probably works. But I have seen almost nobody that has any kind of muscle on them ever have a BMI. Every NFL football player, whether it's a wide receiver or a running back or whatever, they're all obese by a BMI.
Yeah, I don't know how it hasn't ever gotten just like really kind of phased out
Well,
or
it's probably
something.
just because of it's easy to basically say you're at high risk because of the BMI.
It's
chart.
an easy calculation to just classify people.
It's
And I mean,
just a
some
measure of
it-
height and weight.
Some of it goes to, like, if you look on the surgery side, BMI has an indicator on just your likelihood of complications coming out of surgery, how much anesthesia and stuff you're going to need, regardless of, like, if it's all muscle, all fat, like, it still plays into the complexity of your surgery.
But the
small part.
BMI doesn't your height and weight do.
Right, but they use that BMI as the ratio to see, hey, where does that stand up, right? And in general, now BMI works in mass. If you look across the entire U.S. population, the BMI is going to get you pretty darn close. Once you start getting down to pretty much anything smaller than millions of people,
This is gonna get really good.
it will. Like that it works.
No,
yeah.
it absolutely does not.
When you're looking at a large population, and
I
you're
can
just
look at
looking
a large population and
general-
say fat, not fat. I don't need
Right.
like
So
right,
my,
but that
so my
the
fat
BMI
then?
just
no,
categorizes.
you're not fat. You're beautiful just the way you are.
Right, but you
Chris.
use it at like
Thank
an
you.
individual level, and it has no bearing whatsoever.
I
Not at
think
the
it's the
individual level.
dumbest scale ever created. Like you tell me what 5'10" man weighs 160 pounds. Like look it up. Someone look up with the
Right.
Like you tell me that's healthy.
You keep going.
You tell me that anything on that BMI scale is healthy. It is not healthy at all. And I don't
Sure,
think
you could be healthy at that.
You're a skinny little bitch. No, you're not healthy.
Like you could still be healthy at that level.
No, maybe you could be healthy-ish, but
But like,
you could
what's
also
the definition of healthy? Are you saying like you can lift a certain amount of weight, or that you're
you have a certain amount of skeletal muscle mass to me.
okay?
Would,
to me,
would
what,
require
what are you required to do? Like just
to be alive. Yeah,
Okay, well, yeah, you can do that weight. Like that's not a problem.
I'm not saying you can't be 5'10" and 150 pounds and healthy, but I'm not
Right.
saying 150 pounds is ideal health. for 5'10"?
If you're 5'10" and you weigh 170, you're considered overweight.
Yeah, to me that is ridiculous. That is ridiculous.
but a real question to
you
Matt.
tell me what 170 looked like. Was that what, 4th grade for you, Matt?
But now, Matt, you're
don't know.
you're obviously one of the smartest friends I have. But do you think you're a little brainwashed you've been in the insurance industry for a long time?
The insurance
when-
doesn't use it. They
I thought
never
they did.
have. We've never used BMI. We've never used BMI.
Well, because when Amber called to switch our insurance, they told me that based on the BMI, they wouldn't cover
now on
me.
okay, I'll say on the group medical side, individual might have.
Well,
But this is
yes.
in-
you
if you're
can't,
the
you can't on
individual-
group because you could never on group. Because
you
can't.
could. So you could prior to. I will say. So I started in the insurance industry in 2007.
So Matt is an underwriter for people who don't know. He's an
so
insurance
I'm a
underwriter.
medical
so he
insurance
has
underwriter for
street
the
cred.
last 17 plus years. So anyone, let's just say you're a company with 60 people, right? And this is 2007. If you want insurance, you'll apply. You don't have any experience because like all the data that you'd have for your group in aggregate like doesn't exist. So we would ask all the people in your company to fill out. They were called IMQs, an individual
Yeah.
medical questionnaire, right? So you fill that out, you send it in, and we have nurses that kind of comb through it and look at it.
Yep.
There's nowhere on any of the IMQs that we ever saw that had BMI on there. There was a spot for height and weight, right?
Which they just figure out the BMI.
But our nurses never did. Now we would look at generally just weight in general as kind of some kind of guidepost, but it was very rarely ever taken into account. We were more so looking at individual conditions because again, you're spreading out this risk over.
And this is
bigger-
pre-Obamacare.
Yeah, like I said, this happens 2007.
Yep.
2007 and before, up until we stopped those around 2011, maybe. Around 2011, something like that, maybe even before. But we stopped those because there were new methods to get better data, that we could get better, more accurate data. So
Well-
we didn't need them anymore.
So Google, the Google machine, says that researchers, medical professionals, the government, and insurance companies needed a simple way to track health risk among people in the United States.
Yeah, like I said, on the individual side, 100% might have been there. Because now you're looking at just a single person.
So I did own a
So
business and I did
maybe-
have group insurance. And basically, I mean, the guy who sold me the insurance probably gave me more information than I was legally able to have. But basically, they just rated you all individually and then balanced it all, and just spread it out. Like you and I would have been rated differently than my female childbearing age employees. But they couldn't charge them more, so they just charged us. They charged me more and charged her less to all get us in the same.
Is this post Obamacare?
That was pre-Obamacare.
So pre Obamacare, like you would have.
You just had a group rate. But you had people on that group rate that were shooting you up, and you had people on that group
Right.
rate that were bringing you down.
Right, so
but at the end
everyone-
of the day, everyone was $300
Right,
or
so I mean,
whatever it was.
Not to get like too far into it, but like you're gonna the biggest impact and driver on it is gonna be your age and gender. Is hands down gonna be your
Whether you
biggest
can have a
driver.
baby or not.
Right, and so the funny thing is, yes, if you look at it,
Will you tell me I
generally
can't have a baby.
Yeah.
generally women 30 and under are more expensive than men 30 and under because dudes 30 and under generally mostly they just don't go to the doctor.
Right.
Like unless something's completely fucked, they're like, it'll work itself out. It's fine. Women on the other hand can have babies. Not that they're less healthy. They're still probably of the same health, but the likelihood of them having a baby, incurring $10,000 to $20,000 because of that, it just goes up. So in general, they're more as they age out, you get like 50 plus. Men become more expensive, and women become less expensive because men's health doesn't carry with them as far as women's health does. And so you would, if you have group, you are essentially pricing everyone out at the individual-ish level,
And then you just
and you roll it up in aggregate.
Yep.
Right. And so everyone's going to get a factor to apply towards.
Like I had group insurance, and I just had one person I had on their own policy because they were screwing me
Right.
on everything else.
Yeah.
But I'm not supposed to know that back
Right.
then.
Yeah. That's discrimination, and yeah, it's against the law.
Yeah, but I just had he had the same coverage. I just had to have him his own policy.
Right.
Because like he was screwing my group up because he was
Yeah, and sometimes that works out to
Fat
shift
and
people
old.
off, and like we saw that happen. Not like we couldn't make that suggestion. Like you could look at the sales rep and just give the head nod, and they knew Like this one person was just completely fucking them over, and they could go about and do that. Now it's great in when you could find a circumstance where they would actually provide coverage, like we've seen. And I got dragged along through a couple different litigations because the company figured out who the bad apple was, and they restructured their benefit eligibility to carve that person out. So they just were no longer eligible for benefits at that company.
Well, and then post Obamacare says, how old are you and do you smoke or not? Pretty much only 2 questions they can ask, right?
Which is super funny. And this was a study that our actuarial team brought to
Except
us.
individual, they can ask what you weigh.
They can still put all that stuff on there, but the way they break out,
Because they
there's-
said they,
there's
would,
no
they said they wouldn't
individual-
cover me.
there's no
For health
individual
insurance?
underwriting at the individual level anymore.
Or life insurance?
Health insurance.
No.
So everything's guarantee issue. So you can't, so like the IMQs that we used to do, you can't do those even at the individual level anymore. Everything is, carriers file their rates with the state. So I have my grid that says if you are a male between 20 and 30, this is your rate. Now it's specific to this plan. So if you take a different plan, like it could be more or less, and that's your rate for this person. This is your rate for a male who's 55 and so on, and you go down there. Yes, and the smoking yes or no is a multiplier that you can apply to it to adjust for it. But those rates are just all filed and they're stuck. So I can't, if you are a 25-year-old male, but you have just a proven track record of just uncontrolled alcoholism and just all kinds of health stuff because of it, cool. You still get the same rate as the 20-year-old male who's totally perfectly healthy.
I think we should just go to a cash pay system for medical.
Sure.
That's what I want to do.
But
Tired-
back to the
tired of
smoking
paying
thing.
people.
So this was probably 2016 that I went to this presentation. So this group of actuaries presents, and they come up. They're from different carriers, and some are from some individual consultant firms. And they present on kind of like the big risk drivers in the market. And it was shortly after like a drug called Sovaldi came out, which was it was a treatment for Hep C that was pretty much like a 93% cure rate when prescribed and dosed appropriately. It also cost $800,000 for one course of treatment, which we look at that now and like, oh, that's cool. But like there's drugs now that are $1 million, $2 million. Some of the gene therapies are getting closer to like $3 or $4 million. But you've got this drug. So that one drug, when it hit the market, it drove up pharmacy costs by close to 6% across the board. Across the entire insurance industry, pharmacy costs went up by this much. So anyway, so they're talking about this, and they're talking about future drivers and things that are really driving it. Someone asked a question about smoking, and one of the guys just gets one of those like shit-eating grins, and he's like, I'm super glad you asked about this. So they've done tons of analysis with the data that we have. So if you look at insurance companies that have hundreds of thousands of people, so like hundreds of thousands of exposures, huge sample sizes, lots of people to go through, there is virtually no increased medical cost between a smoker and a non-smoker across the industry. Now, individual levels, sure, but you spread that across like an entire book of business. So, if you've got a million,
If you have 1 million people,
like there's no cost difference between
those business is it's a giant meta analysis.
It's a big analysis of all these individual people, right? So you have a population that has, so say you've got 1 million people that did not smoke, and you've got 1 million people that did smoke. Now there's some variance within, right? But there's more variance within each population than there is between. So it's pretty much not identical populations, but
Close enough.
pretty fucking close. The only difference is that one smoked and one didn't. The cost between those is minimal. Like it's meh, whatever. Now, if you separate that and you look at people with either the beatus or anything that gets lumped under a metabolic syndrome umbrella, there is a huge cost difference between it. A giant cost difference. And
Which is crazy because insulin is should be.
right, but like insulin's just one part of it. So that's just insulin treats the diabetes, but you have the diabetes probably because you're overweight and you have poor diet choice. And there's other complications. So there's other what they call comorbidities that roll up into it. So generally, if people are overweight, have the beatus, have one of these. There's a number of things that roll up under metabolic.
We're talking about
syndrome
type 2,
umbrella.
right?
Yeah, type 2. Yeah, not type 1. Type 1 is something different. Like that's, you could be in the best shape of your life and still have type 1. But when you look at that, there is a humongous cost difference between it. I don't remember the percent offhand, but pretty much every actuary on this panel was like, yeah, like if we really want to like price differentiate and price appropriate, those people should be the ones that should be getting more. Now they said, yeah, I mean, you have BMI, which is an indicator, but that's a shit on the individual level. Like it doesn't do any good to like try to get someone's BMI and say, hey, you're going to cost more and put that down. There's other things like there's, I can't remember what it's called, but it's essentially like a measure of your lean mass versus your height. And so there's a ratio that goes into that can be a little more predictive. But the big thing is like smoking versus non-smoking, no difference. You're like being overweight, having the beatus, there's a huge driver, but every actuary on this panel was like, yeah, but nobody's going to stand up and let's charge fat people more. There's no insurance company that's willing to say that. Or
Which is shitty because
right, because that's the main driver.
Well, and they just, what they need to do is they need to change how the BMI is just a shitty scale. Like I will just say it's just a shitty scale. It's a lazy scale.
Yeah.
When there's, I don't know, 1,000 different ways that we could figure out whether someone's overweight or not.
Right.
well, yeah, I don't even care but when you meet with your insurance adjuster, why you can't use like the InBody or use like one of those, even the handheld body fat which I get there's some discrepancy in those, but still,
Right.
it gives you better information than just a BMI does.
They could take that InBody. They have a freaking InBody floor scale now. Costs $400. They could take that out and you could just stand on it. Is it as accurate as the $10,000 one I have in my store? No, it's close damn enough.
But yeah,
But
and I think
what if part of your annual exam was you got like a DEXA scan? Like the way that we operate and do like blood work once a year and the small amount of information that they capture,
Yeah.
I think you'd be better off doing a DEXA scan to see not only body fat, but you can see visceral fat, which is a way better indicator of overall health.
Well, yeah, and they actually have that on your InBody too. Like
Yeah, so you can do-
the
yeah.
Mayo Clinic uses the InBody 570 or 770.
and even like your blood work, why can't you submit that once a year and get your insurance lowered?
Well, yeah, I don't know. The whole thing just pisses me off.
Because the reason Matt and I have had these discussions multiple times is because Amber and I are self-employed. Do you do group insurance with yours or just you?
No.
Are you through Nicole's?
Yeah.
God, she drives the truck and carries the insurance. Look at her fucking go.
I know.
Man.
And Chris has insurance through work, obviously.
Yeah.
But I mean, as soon as like Obamacare took into effect, and everybody else knows, our insurance went fucking crazy. Amber and I pay like $800+ a month for insurance with a $10,000 deductible piece, and I don't ever fucking go to the doctor,
Right.
and I
It's
never
ridiculous.
have.
Like the funny, like, so the main driver behind on the individual side, why it went up so much is you used to have these age bands, right? So that went up by 5-year increments. So you went, I think sub 20 to 25, 26 to 30 and so on. So they went up between your lowest cost group, which is your 20 to 25s, and your highest cost group, 60 plus, used to be upwards of, I think, a 12 to 16 times difference, right? So if you paid $100 as a 20-year-old male, you'd pay $1,600 as a 62-year-old, 65-year-old male. They shrank that to $6. So now if you pay $100 as a 20-year-old male, the most that 60-plus male is going to pay is $600.
Well, and they
So-
need to cover it, so they moved yours
Right,
to
so
$400.
Right,
so
so
they
you
can
had
charge
this range
$2,400 for
collecting
that.
whatever that money is. Now that range is here, but rather than bringing the top down, the top comes down quite a bit, but then this bottom comes up
Even more.
even more. So really, like, your best bet is to stay somewhere in the middle, and then you're kind of like, it's okay. But everything in general still has to shift up to offset, because there's a limited amount of money they can bring in to the pot to pay everything, but there's an unlimited amount of money that they can pay out.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the amount of money the United States pays on healthcare is astronomical compared to what a lot of other industrialized countries pay. And it's because I just don't think we focus on health. No one here focuses on health. They focus on fucking numbers. They focus on what fucking pill you need. You like, oh,
Well,
you
big pharmacy. I mean, You watch anything on TV, and 90% of the commercials are big pharma commercials.
One
Well,
of
and-
two countries,
and-
us and New Zealand, I think, are the only two countries that allow prescription pharmaceuticals to advertise.
And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I don't think necessarily that. I guess I can make an argument either way. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be able to advertise.
I think it's a lobbying problem is where we have.
It's a lobbying problem, and the fact that basically your doctor has no say in your care.
Well,
Like,
the other part is the
they have
doctors are
very
getting
little
kickback.
say.
Or doctors are getting kickbacks from
Well, they
certain
can't.
drugs.
They can't anymore. So they get there's different loopholes around.
They
it.
have different ways to get. They can't
Yeah.
get straight kickbacks,
Yeah.
but there's other things.
They used to get like straight up rebates.
Yeah.
It was like, hey, you wrote 100 scripts. Here's 10,000.
I mean, the fact that Amber and I pay almost $10,000 a year in health insurance and don't
Crap
ever go to
shit.
the doctor outside of, like basically I just go get my blood work done, make sure I'm healthy. Amber gets her regular, annual female.
right.
So your plan that you have with the what's your deductible?
It's $10,000 a piece.
Okay. So I think it would be better off for everyone in the country to have that plan at what you're paying for your taxes, right? You get that plan. Everybody does. You don't get any other insurance, and you pay up to $10,000. You just pay so you don't pay anything every month, but for the first $10,000, you're paying it all cash.
Well, and I've always thought that
Because you know what you would do if I have to get an MRI? I'm calling around. How much is your MRI? How much is your MRI?
but I think you've also started to see more of those doctors that are doing,
like Brigham Bruner, Ways to Well, and Peter.
well, and even Merrick Health
Oh,
is
yeah.
doing that too.
Yep.
So you don't have to go to the doctor. I mean, dude, $10,000 is a lot of money. I don't care how much money you make. $10,000 a year for literally nothing in return.
So if you just were responsible for the first $10,000 of your medical,
Oh,
care,
yeah.
you'd be fine because some years you would pay $500, or you would at least be able to choose what you spent that money on. And then if you didn't use it, you didn't have to spend any money. But if something catastrophic happens, you're only out $10,000. And I'm not saying $10,000 is not a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
I understand, but it's not bankruptcy money for most people. It's not like I will never recover from this $10,000.
Well, and I brought up that comparison with Matt before, like car insurance.
It's not car insurance.
Because, here's my thing. Like, you look at car insurance.
No.
If I go, let's say I buy a fucking brand new LaFerrari. It's like a how many $1 million car? I just pick it up from the dealership. I'm driving down the street. I'm like, we're going to fucking step into this bitch. Boom.
After
I
the
hit
first 500 miles, right?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
break
Either
it.
way, I hit a fucking van with a family full of people and I kill all of them. My insurance pays it, but I've only paid them my $200 a month. See what I mean? Like, car insurance pays out a lot.
Yeah,
They
but
pay out a lot, but not frequently.
There's a lot of fender benders and a lot of shit going on, though.
but you also
in
have
scale,
deductibles.
Yeah, but still, I'm only paying.
Here, yeah,
I'm paying $600. Actually,
Right.
I'm paying $650 less a month for car
So,
insurance.
but you have to separate because car insurance is going to be two different things, right? You have the coverage for your vehicle, which is actually in the grand scheme of spending is pretty small. Like even if you have $100,000 truck, right, and they have $100,000, that's $200,000. So like in the grand scheme,
But
of
then your other
expenses
part of it is the bodily harm.
is the
one.
bodily harm part, right? And that's what upwards of $300,000 to sometimes
million.
like $1 million you can go. So like they're still capped out on stuff like that. It's generally not going to pay that much. If you look at that and kind of compare it to the medical side, you have a plethora of relatively common things that can be $100,000, $200,000, $300,000. Like, let's just say kidney transplant, which is like in the medical thing, like that's pretty common. That's $200,000, $300,000 for that. Your heart attack, like just a straight up heart attack, very very basic one, $50,000 to $80,000. If you spend any time in the ACU, there's another $100,000.
But okay, are those medical costs true, or are they really inflated?
Those are the
Why-
paid
like-
amounts by the carrier.
Okay, but the cost from the hospital, why are there $80 Tylenol?
Right. So that gets into a very very different thing. So there's build amounts. Like if you guys have got
Yeah, but you have build amounts and then you have paid amounts,
Right.
But we have these build amounts that have been pushed up because insurance
Right.
companies don't want to pay certain things,
Yeah.
so people bill more so they get their 30% or
But now
whatever
your-
else.
your markup
but
on this-
your insurance companies are driving the costs up. Like, like insurance companies determine your care. Like, we don't actually have like I kind of misspoke earlier. Your car insurance is actually car insurance. You know what they don't tell you to do? How to change your oil, like when to rotate your tires or anything else. Right? Your health insurance, like I go in and my knee's fucked up, I have to get an x-ray. Is it broken? No, I don't need a fucking x-ray. If I'm paying for this, I don't need an x-ray. I just need an MRI.
Well, that's the part I've never liked either is like, and I was said, say you've been with the same carrier for 10 years and you paid them 10 grand a year, right? You got 100 grand you paid them. Well, and then you have some small incident like, well, we don't cover that. I should be able to leave them, or if I decide I want to leave them and they have to pay me a certain percentage back of what I've invested into that company because they can choose to not cover me. Like, you know what I mean? I could go and like, well, we don't cover that, so you can't do that.
I just think it should be a cash system. Like I said, I just think it should be a cash system that we all pay for.
Well,
and that
I agree.
use.
But my thing is, I'm fine with you if you have insurance. It needs to, the price is crazy, but it shouldn't matter what I want to do. I'm paying for you to insure me. If I want to do this, I've paid for you to do this.
But see, since the insurance companies are the one paying the provider, they're the ones that are in charge of what happens.
But that's what I'm saying. It should be because I'm giving you.
That's
work
why
for
the only way you do that is if you have a cash system.
Because the
then
problem
I get to choose.
But now everyone gets to choose that. So it's like.
But I think the problem is they mess up is because insurance companies, where a lot of not just insurance companies, people forget, you work for the customer. The customer doesn't work for you, but that's not how they run it. I've been paying you. Amber and I have been paying. We've been with United Healthcare since we fucking got married. We've been paying them for years, but they can still dictate what I can and can't do. No, you work for me. But now if I would want to leave, I've never had any major issues, never been hospitalized, neither has Amber. If I want to leave, I want some of my fucking money back because you didn't do anything for me.
But the problem is because of the way it's all set up, your not usage is paying for someone else's usage.
Right,
Yeah,
but that's in any insurance.
That's why I think insurance is bullshit.
That's why it sounds like
That's a Chris Rock comedy skit. In case some shit happen, and if some shit don't happen, shouldn't I get my money back?
That's what I'm saying. And I'm not saying I should get it all back because they did. Insurance companies do take some liability, but I should get like 60% of my fucking money back.
I think the bigger thing here is what Matt said about that Hep C drug, and then it raised everything 6%. I think that happened probably because a lot of people had Hep C that was uncurable, and then they come out with this curable thing. But the issue there is how much money did it actually take that pharmaceutical company to make that? And once they make their money back, and then whatever profit that is, I think that should come back out
You
of
go
it.
into the R&D
You know what I
costs
mean?
to get
Because
that
then
stuff back.
it doesn't
Yeah,
keep
but-
inflating the system with more
Right,
drugs that
but so
keep
let's just say
coming
they
out.
do that and they get their money back and stuff. Like, but now they have that patent for call it 5 years.
Which is also stupid.
So
They
you get a
shouldn't have-
patent on that. No,
Yeah. I get
having
it. They
some
got to make
protection
they got to
on
make
that?
their money. I
Right.
get that.
There's-
I'm okay with this.
mean,
See, here's the
that's-
thing. I'm okay with the 7-year patent. I think it's what it is, right?
yeah, it's 7. Well, you can file extensions too, depending on what it is.
I'm okay with
I
the
think it goes
patent.
out to like 12
What I'm
years.
not okay with is like you have the government bureaucracy that makes it to where that EpiPen, right? The epinephrine costs you pennies.
Yeah, but
It
is
costs
the patent okay if it doesn't save people? I thought the thing we're worried about here is people's health.
But you still have to.
Then that's more about
But
money
I'm still
if
a
they're having a patent.
capitalist. I'm still a capitalist. Where
Well,
if someone has to,
Everybody's got to get their money. I understand.
people have to get paid. And if I'm going to be a company that's going to go out there and invest time and resources into 1,000 drugs that didn't work to get one that did, right? Then I should be paid for that. However,
You should have a nice house and have be able to pay your company, but I don't think everybody should have their own personal jet working there. That's what it seems like the kind of money we're talking
my
about.
determination, I don't determine anyone's wealth. If they want to, I'm not going to determine.
They were smart enough to come up with it. I wasn't. I'll give them
I'm
that.
not going to. I'm not going to.
I-
I'm not going to
yeah, I
determine
agree with that.
Bezos's wealth because he came up with Amazon. Like that's not my job to say that he can sell his share, 10% of his shares of the day for $1.2 billion.
I just think we're talking about some of the different. Amazon's a company where you buy stuff online and use merchandise, but as far as like people's health goes, is a completely.
Well, but even
different
like
you're
type of thing
coming,
to
but
talk
you're coming up with other drugs. However, if once again we actually made it capitalist to where people paid cash, right? Like you had to buy things, the cost of everything comes down. The only
agree with
time
that.
the cost of things go up is when the government, insurance companies, and crony capitalism happen. Then the cost of shit goes up. But true capitalism, the cost of shit always comes down. Look at your goddamn TV, right?
Computers, TV.
Computers, TV,
But even
all
even
that stuff
even
comes
meet in the
down.
middle
That's
because
exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So eventually the prices should come down, but you
Yes.
have to wait till the patent wears out before that happens.
And I'm okay. And well, it's the same thing with your TV, right? It's the same thing with your computer. It's the same thing with a lot of things.
Well-
like, unfortunately,
But
not
in the
everyone
meantime,
gets things.
the cost of everything inflates because this new drug's out
But-
and everybody needs it.
But now, in the middle of that, like I'm on the same side with you. You should be able to make as much money as you want to. I see what you're saying, But like, what'd you say that pill cost? That medication cost
That was $800,000
for how long? A month? supply?
No, it's a 3 month thing,
Okay.
but that's one dose.
But here's my thing: is
But are you cured of that 800,000?
Yeah.
okay? But hold on.
Okay.
Like
so we're talking
90
about
some
but we're talking about Hep C, right? Well, so do you know the number of average number of people infected with Hep C
Well,
in the
there's
U.S.?
a lot because
lot.
it was uncurable.
Well, no, I know, but what do you think? Like, we're talking like 10 million.
I have no idea what the number are.
So it is
But here's
a
what I'm
lot.
saying: is like, so you're charging 800,000 for that, and let's say there's 10 million people that have Hep. Now, at some point, where does price gouging come into play, right? Because you're making 800,000 off 10 million people. You're easily have made your money back on your R&D. You've bought your jet. Like I said, I don't care. You want to buy jets. It's all what some CEO. I always tell people, if a CEO buys 3 jets, it's no different than the guy that makes minimum wage by eating at McDonald's 4 days a week. It's all relative. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like how they spend their money, I don't really care, as long as they pay for their things they need to. But at what point is it price gouging? We're charging 800,000 for a
But
pill.
it's only price gouging because you have a government backed
Well, that's what I'm saying. But
and insurance companies.
Ish. But now because of the patent, though, someone else has to discover how to make that in order to compete with it.
But I'm just saying, if it was $800,000 drug and you have 10 million hepatitis C people and it's a cash thing, okay, do you think they can sell for that much?
No,
No,
one
exactly.
can afford it.
No one's gonna research to find it.
Right. But the people who made the drug can't sell it for that much.
No.
So they're like, well, we're going to lower our price until we can sell it, which is how capitalism works.
There's going to be so the I think a thing that separates this, like the medical industry, from everything else when you look at just a straight capitalism,
people's value of life.
like there's the life value and the impact. So like there's one super duper, probably like the saddest case I ever had to underwrite was this case with a 7 or 8 year old girl who had a bone marrow disease. She had, in the 3 years that I underwrote that one and looked at it, and like I got to go out and meet with the group and like talk to them and stuff. This girl had 7 bone marrow transplants, right? 7 bone marrow transplants. Of the 3 years that I underwrote it, she had an accumulated 4.5 weeks that she was not in the hospital. Each bone marrow transplant, $1.5 million for just the transplant, just the transplant alone. Tack on another, I think she was averaging $4 to $5 million a year because of ICU costs, hospital costs, traveling. They had to go. So wherever they can get the transplant, like they had to go to, it's called the Institute of Quality. Either way, a transplant specialist place to do that. So you have travel to go there. Parents now have to stay at a airport, at a hotel nearby, sometimes at the hospital and stuff. So you have situations like that where even the break-even cost for that is beyond what 95% of people can afford. Like most people cannot afford that.
I would say
Even-
almost 100% of people can't afford that.
no,
Probably 99.
yeah. I mean, maybe it's closer to 99%, right? So maybe
I
there's,
mean,
maybe there's
60% of Americans don't have $1,500 cash.
right.
Well-
so maybe there's, but so you have, and that, again, that's kind of an outlier situation for that. But you have instances like that, especially when it comes to
that
kids.
was to my point is that everyone they pay 10,000 and then
Right, but now you're putting a limit. Now we're putting a limit on that.
No.
somehow. So who puts that?
I
Who
didn't-
puts the $10,000 limit in?
no, you only pay 10,000.
Right, but who pays the rest of it?
Your taxes.
Or you're talking about like having a nationalized health care.
But not straight now. Like you have to pay the first 10,000 because I think it gets abused. But you have cases like that, and I don't want anyone to go bankrupt. I don't want anyone to do that.
Right.
But most Americans aren't going to get rid of that $10,000 if it has to come right out of their pocket. Like if they have to pay their doctor, they're
Right.
not going to dumb doctors. Like if
That's, I think it's
you're going to have to, like, I'm not saying it's straight capitalism. I'm just saying I want to bring capitalism back into it to where
That's only going to work.
how many people have to avoid.
Like, what if you don't have a job and you can't pay?
Sounds like a you problem.
Yeah.
Well, I
Right.
mean,
Well, let's look. Let's look
I
at some
get
of
what
these
you're
gene
saying.
therapies.
No,
right?
but what I'm
But,
saying, like
yeah.
that you get billed. Like there is that's the money that you owe.
Well, but how
like
about
everything else though? Just because you give somebody a credit card and they're going to charge some stuff on it doesn't mean that that credit card company is going to get paid. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? So the hospital, they could say, "Oh yeah, you haven't met your 10,000 for the year. You owe us this much money." So at what point does someone say, "You've never paid us"? we're not going to help you anymore.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what
I mean, that's the problem. That's kind of
I
where
get what
we're
you're
at.
saying.
But I mean, that's what we do now.
Right.
Like you,
I mean,
like if you don't,
there's
if you
laws
don't,
against stuff like that now.
not for your general practice
Not
doctor.
general, but if you have an
The
emergency,
only time
they have to
yes
help you.
So if you have to go
That's
there,
about it.
so
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying there's not, but the flaw still exists.
Right.
I'm just saying for most people, if you didn't have to pay any health insurance money and you had that extra money, but now it's coming out of your hand to pay your doctor, you're going to be smarter about it. You're not going to go do dumb shit.
I would
that-
agree with you.
Yes.
But that's the
I think
problem.
that does-
Everybody that
that
doesn't
helps
pay
with
that
some
is
of it.
not going to be doing.
So that's
going to
help mitigate some of the cost.
Hold on.
Right.
How about when you go back to it was $1.5 million for a bone marrow transplant? Like, what the fuck?
I mean, you had the one surgery was
Like, that's a
I think
lot of
6
money.
or 7 hours with
I don't know enough
4
about
different
bone marrow
specialists
transplant. Yeah.
and the drugs. I don't know.
I don't know enough about a bone marrow transplant
I don't- about the
it might be
actual
worth it.
procedure.
I have. I mean, I have.
I'm
no
not saying
idea.
the price of
yeah.
life. I'm not putting a value on that girl's life. I'm just saying $1.5 million for someone to work for 7 hours.
Well, so you got a
There's a lot
team,
of-
right? So
yeah.
there was 4 surgeons, 4
So they made
specialists in there,
$250,000.
plus your
you
hospital
have to,
staff.
So you have to like to donate. Like if you donate bone marrow, they have to like drill into your
No,
hip.
I'm not arguing. I'm just saying, if you break that down, that's a lot of money
Right, but
hourly.
it is, but there's a lot of other people that go into it, right?
The
it's-
anesthesiologist.
So
I mean,
think
there's a
about
lot
like
of-
you have, So let's just say you have 4 surgeons. I think that's what it was. So you have 4 surgeons, at least one anesthesiologist. You probably have an anesthesiologist and a nurse anesthetist who are both tied to it. You have, I'll say, minimum 5 other OR people in that room. You have the facility. You have whatever
You have the-
stuff you used in
yeah.
there. You have pre-care, post-care, and all the people associated
for the
with that.
donor and
Right,
For
so it's not like-
But,
it's not
but
those
it's the
4
pre-care and
people.
post-care in there because then you said she also had $4.5 million in hospital stay.
Right. So that's living pretty much in an ICU for 50 weeks.
But is that part of the post-care and pre-care though?
That's different. So post care is like you come out of the hospital room and you go to like recovery.
I guess my point is that like those, it's just kind of like anything. You can take an outlier on anything
Right.
and try and screw up, or not screw up.
Right.
Try and throw a monkey wrench into what would work for 90% of the time. Like, why are we focused on 2% of the time?
Because the 2% drives 60%.
Well, let's fix 90.
right. So if you
Let's fix 90 and then work on 2.
if you look at like on average, I think the last block analysis I saw when we were looking at 10% of the groups that we had on our book of business, I think it was just in Texas, 10% of the population drove upwards of 60 to 70% of the claims.
See, and that's my problem with health insurance is because I'm not the 10%.
Right. But that's
So like my costs are affected because of those 10%.
Right.
And that's my problem with it.
right. But
That's also why your taxes are up,
Those
though.
people, right?
Yes.
But if you, and so I think passing there has to be some kind of obligation to the patient to not be a fuckhead and to get better, right? So there are things like, so the company that I work for, Pareto Health, we have a ton of cost containment programs in place, and it sounds like a bad title, like we're just going to come out and say no. But what we're doing is we're pairing up people with either cheaper places, like we have portals that people can call. So like to your point, to get an MRI, your doc's going to say, hey, I want an MRI. This place is super fucking convenient, or it's owned by the hospital that I'm associated with and I get some kind of money from that because the hospital does better, so I want you to go here. You need an MRI. It goes to the pre-screen. Pre-screen looks at that and goes, cool, you need an MRI? I'm going to call Matt. Hey, Matt, I see you need an MRI. I looked in your area. Here's the 5 places that I would recommend because they're the cheapest. And there's like different medical certifications and reviews, but they're going to be like, hey, here's essentially the best bang for your buck. 9 times out of 10, it is going to be 40% less than wherever like the default place is. So there's things like that come into place that can help drive spot. There's also follow-up liability that I'm not, because we don't like write the policies, but like there's policies that are coming out where it's, if you go and have, say you have a knee transplant or a knee replacement, maybe it's someday we'll just give you a transplant.
A new knee.
But yeah, you get a knee replacement. If you don't meet certain markers post follow-up, i.e. you're going to PT, you're showing that you're achieving range of motion, you have certain objective things that you have to accomplish, and then you have complications, there is more financial obligation shifted to you for anything post follow-up.
But now, are you guys dropping your rates with that idea?
The intent, well, I mean, the rates, I don't know, rates aren't going to go down.
Rates never go down.
But
it's a matter of trying to keep
it's
them
a matter of
from
trying to
going
keep them from going up
Well,
at the rate that they're going.
But my prediction is eventually it's going to have to, or it's all going to come to a head.
Well, that's the
I mean,
problem.
you got people paying like $1,500 to $2,000 a month. Eventually, you're going to break people, so they're not going to have insurance, and insurance companies will go broke because the Trumpster made it so you didn't have to. You don't have to. There's no fine. You don't have to have insurance. You can have an HSA if you really wanted to, and just pay for shit that way. So, eventually, you're going to break. The system will get broke.
Well, and I think part of it's just like governments, big businesses, they all have this like, well,
We're untouchable.
well, but they also have budgets. So if I spent $1 million last year, I'm going to ask for 1.1 this year. Do I really need it? No, and then you always push to spend your budget because everyone wants to keep their money.
But outside of that, you know what I mean? Eventually, you can only
It'll all
fuck people
break.
for so long before it's going to break. Because, you know, you look at like that Hep C drug, okay? You can live with Hep C. You're on medication. Before they could cure it, you can live with Hep C.
I don't even know what.
I don't know, but like your quality of life is different depending on who you are, and there's lots of stuff. But
Okay, but
so-
look at well,
Yeah.
but now you have someone like Tanner, his knees are fucked up.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's considered an elective surgery, but his quality of life is pretty shitty because he walks around with a fucking bum knee. But now he can't get that because it's an elective surgery, but I can get the Hep C cure because I have a rough life with Hep
So
C.
that can, and I don't know anything about your policy, but
I
that,
think there's different ways you contract Hep C too. So I could see if you are,
but you can live with it. I'm just saying it's not
you
like
could live with
it's not
it,
a
but,
death sentence. You can
I
live with
mean,
Hep C. People did for a long time.
Tanner didn't share needles to get his knees fucked up. That's right.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is like back to the insurance thing. He wants to get surgery. I've been paying you for my insurance. I fucking can get surgery.
so if like when you buy car insurance, right, you can buy just liability, you can buy full coverage. There's a wide spectrum.
But there's not really that with health insurance because I used to have catastrophic when I was in college.
But you can get like different qualities of plans that have different things. Like look at drugs. There's something called like, so you guys know what like generic drugs are and brand drugs are, right? So there's the difference, right? You have essentially your brand name and then you have like your Our Family Value macaroni, right? So there's different kinds. Same clinical effectiveness between the two. Most policies, in an attempt to keep costs down, do not have a dispense as written clause. So like if your doctor writes you for, can't even think of any brand names right now. Let's just say-
Synthroid.
What's that?
Synthroid.
Synthroid. What's that?
Thyroid drug.
All right, so Synthroid. Synthroid is the brand name, right? They write you a prescription for Synthroid. If you have the clause of dispense as written, then the pharmacy will give you
the actual
Synthroid.
name brand drug.
Yeah, they'll give you the actual name brand drug, which is going to be 10 to 30 times more than your generic version most of the time. If you don't have that clause, which is generally a cheaper plan, they will give you
Levothyroxine.
the generic equivalent. Again, same clinical efficacy. The binding pieces inside there and the delivery mechanism are slightly different, but it's been demonstrated to have the same clinical effectiveness. Those are two different plan types that you can buy. So you can have everything looks pretty much the same, but that's a lever that you can pull to buy up to have a better option. So if you want the option for them to just cover pretty much anything, like there's ways that you can buy plans that have that stuff in there. Same thing, like you can buy better car insurance.
Yeah, and I'm just saying that I think that as a human, I should be able to say, hey, I want Synthroid. I will pay the $100, or I can take this and I will pay $30, and I should be able to choose. And my insurance company should.
You're only gonna be able to choose at the patent.
But if you want to pay the full
So there
100
can be a
versus the
generic.
30, sure. If you're saying my copay is 30,
I
for
don't
that,
think there
and
should be
then-
copays.
Right, but if you want to pay the cash value for it, okay.
No, I just think I think if you just moved everything to the cash value and
Yeah.
we paid for it, that you would see the cost of things come down. Okay, LASIK. Has anyone had LASIK? Mm-hmm. Okay, I had LASIK 15 years ago. It was twice as expensive and not as good as it is today. That's a medical procedure.
Yep.
Right? Now you can go get LASIK for half the price is what I paid, and it's a better procedure. Right? So, like, that's what I think would happen in a lot of medical. I'm not saying every single time you're going to be able to throw something out that I'm wrong about. I get it. But for 90% of people in 90% of cases, I think that it would drive the cost of things down because you're paying for it yourself.
When you have, you see claim activity go down the higher the deductible goes on the plan.
Yeah.
Right. So they have their HDHPs, HSAs, whatever you want to call them.
$10,000 deductible. Never use a damn doctor.
Right.
Well, but that was only so we could keep our fucking monthly premium under like $1,200 for
Yeah.
two fucking healthy individuals.
But that's what I'm saying. But if you just had to, if you took that $1,200 or whatever your plan a month, but that's what you could use, right? But you had to spend it, you still wouldn't be spending it. You're only going to spend it on stuff that you think is necessary, and you're going to try and take better care of yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually
It's your dollars and your even
because
though
of because of where the American system is. It's actually better just to be a fucking total scumbag and just get free healthcare.
It's really spiraled out of control here off the BMI conversation.
Well, this is
this is how we roll.
and I think it's hard for people who are not self-insured to really understand how fucking terrible it is to pay that every single month.
Right. Like most
They
people,
have no clue.
Most people don't understand. Like they're like, fuck, man, my insurance is $200 a month with this company. This is fucking terrible. Minimum, that plan is actually $400 a month because most companies, most insurance carriers will not cover someone unless they pay at least 50% of the employee cost, right? So if you're paying $200, your employer is paying the other $200, so it's really $400. It could be more, right? So like there's people who have insurance right now and their company pays for some of it, like they still don't fully understand how just outrageously expensive.
And I'm
is to have coverage.
excited to see the fall of insurance companies, but it won't happen because of government bailouts. Because the problem is, this all kind of stems the idea is, I don't have a problem with lobbyists if you're lobbying for actual constitutional rights. And I don't care what anybody wants to fucking believe, healthcare is not a right, it's a privilege. It is not a right in this country, whether you like it or not. It is not a fucking right in this country. I don't think there should be lobbyists for that. If you want to have a lobbyist for first, second, third, for whatever amendment you want to, something that's constitutionally based, have all the lobbyists you want to. I get it. Pharmaceutical companies, healthcare companies, any of these other fucking lobbyists, the car companies, there should not be lobbyists for any of these companies because you are not lobbying for something that somebody's right. You're lobbying to make a law.
The right to be alive is pretty cool.
That's not really.
I mean, medical insurance and medical coverage is, in my mind, is a gray area because we all value life. I mean, I like mine.
I mean, I don't like a lot of other people's.
Right. But I like mine in particular. Like, I don't really, everyone else fuck off, but like, I like mine, right? So,
But you do things to improve your life.
right. But I also have almost a similar chance of getting some kind of fucked up weird ass cancer as someone else. Right.
That's
So
true.
That
but this
thing's
is kind
out
of an,
there.
which I get cancer is not really an outlier because a lot of people get cancer. But overall, it's an outlier.
Right, but the outliers are what's driving the cost, right? And insurance companies in general, like they're making pretty small margins, like they're still doing well. That's why, well, no, they are from a percentage standpoint, and like overall, like their
Percentages vary depending
even
on how
overall.
much. Yeah, like bees. I'm just saying, like Amazon can make 10%. 10% doesn't sound like a lot,
right, but
10% of
volume,
lots.
over volume, yeah.
Okay.
But it's also one of the few industries that's, I don't know if there's others that have it out, like they're mitigated, they're capped on how much they can make right now,
They are.
right?
I
So-
got a check back one time for Blue Cross Blue
Right.
Shield. It might have been like 12 or 15
Yeah.
years ago.
And so, like, one of the benefits that's
make
actually
too
kind
much
of come
money.
out of it is no. So Blue Cross is their own fuckhead show. Like that place is the HSCS is a conglomeration of 6 different Blue Crosses around the country. And for those of you guys, like, you guys know all Blue Crosses are actually their own independent companies. They're not. They're all Blue Cross Blue Shield, but they're independents. Like
Yeah.
Blue Cross in Nebraska is
So they're like franchises, basically.
yeah, kind of. They just use the same.
Well, they
names,
have
so
different state laws.
Yeah, they can get they get some commonality for buying power, but they're all different. But
Yeah.
so HSCS is a conglomeration of 6 different Blue Crosses. Like I think it's Ohio, Texas, like Louisiana, Oklahoma, and some others. Right. In 2018, the federal DOI came out and was like, "Hey guys, you have too much money. You have to spend down some of your reserves or you're going to lose your not-for-profit." And they're like, "Cool. How much do we have to spend down?" They're like, I'd say $10 billion would be a good place to start. So they had reserves in surplus of, I think they can have up to 3 to 6 months of operating expenses before it starts to get outlandish. Some $10 billion in reserves that they had to start spending down. They actually got sued. There were a number of people that took them to court, and they had to do stuff like that. But now they're nonprofits. So they get a little bit of a slip there. So they do some different things, but everyone else is kind of capped. So like one of the benefits that's kind of come out of that.
That's what I'm saying. Like that $10 billion that they had in surplus.
No, but Blue Cross is different than everyone else.
But I'm just saying that's Blue Cross Blue Shield isn't small.
No.
I mean, they have to be driving up medical costs. If you have $10 billion extra, like this is where we're going to start. You gotta get rid of this $10 billion,
Right.
Like that's like Ukraine money. Like, I mean, this is
right. People don't understand. Like $10 billion.
$10 billion is a lot of fucking money. That's
I
a
thought
lot
$1
of
million
dollars.
was a lot.
Huh?
Yeah.
I thought $1 million was a lot.
Yeah.
So like, but they can
Haven't
mitigate. So
people
like insurance
became
companies, like,
billionaires off nonprofit companies?
like you got your check.
The NFL
right?
was
so
a
the money
nonprofit.
back.
Yeah,
So companies,
right.
the way that the minimum loss ratios work out is it's an average over 3 years, and it's kind of split by some different products and stuff. So insurance companies are constantly looking at that, and they're actually trying to run higher than that, right? So that they don't have to pay that. Because like for them to send you a check, what they actually have to do is they have to go through and get a listing of every individual who is covered during that period, find those people, find their address, send them a check, and confirm that you actually cashed the check. So if you didn't cash the check, then they should.
I cashed it.
Yeah, they'll keep reaching out to you though, because they have to confirm back with the government that they sent out all the checks and they have their imaginary binder of confirmations that everyone cashed it. So
You should
like,
have held on to it and
It's
they
one of the
called you and be
last
like,
things that they want to do.
Yeah, that wasn't enough. I'm gonna need like another 1,000. Otherwise,
So,
I'm
but
not gonna
what
cash
they'll
it.
do-
I
They'll
don't
run
even
like
know.
that.
It might have been $100. I mean, no
it's pretty
idea.
low per person.
I have no idea
Throw
what it
another
was.
zero on that, and I'll think about
So as they
cashing
go
it.
through and they see that they are like, oh, we're getting close to. So usually you want to run a couple points higher than whatever the minimum is. So you have like a little bit of fluff there. If you happen to like have a good year, if they start to think that they might eat into that buffer, they'll actually lower rates and they'll reduce their base rates and they'll give premium credits to groups.
So they can lower rates, is what you're saying.
Yeah, so they can. They'll spend off money to try to get that thing down. So
Back to the insurance
kind of
companies.
works
Fuck
back.
us.
It kind of works back to get there.
Well,
All right. So BMI is a crock of shit.
yeah,
Insurance companies are fucking everybody.
Yeah.
real nice, Matt.
It'd be real cool if we could just all have like self-pay health clinics and we could actually take care of ourselves and maybe focus on actual.
Well, but I
health.
think you're getting more of those independent doctors that
Yeah.
are going out where you're just paying them.
like that Brigham Brenner at Ways to Well,
Yeah.
and then Peter
Attia.
Attia. There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
Actually, I think there've been some that popped up in Omaha and Lincoln too.
And I wish they'd come back with the catastrophic. When I was in college, I had catastrophic insurance, and it was like $100 a year.
Yeah.
Well, I just think catastrophic insurance is like, I don't want anyone to go bankrupt because they have cancer. Like, I understand that, and I don't want that to happen. Okay. However, I also think that you go into the damn doctor for every little fucking thing and you not taking care of your health and you not
That's-
worrying about yourself. Like, there needs to be some personal accountability.
Yeah.
And the best way to have personal accountability is to make it come out of your pocket. Because when it comes out of your pocket, then you double check.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I wish I could just do catastrophic because Amber and I don't go to the doctor. You know what I mean? And if you offered a catastrophic insurance policy for $200 a month, you're probably going to have 50 million people on that policy. I think you'll be okay.
Yeah,
But
and,
just
then
say,
you,
hey-
and you have to pay the first 10,000 or
But
whatever.
just say,
yeah.
but just say this doesn't cover anything until you get over a certain amount, like it's 10 grand or whatever. It covers nothing.
But I don't even think you should have to pay for that. Like,
Well, no, I'm just saying you'd have
but
to pay
even
the
if-
first
but
10
even,
grand. You know,
even if you did, if it was everyone
You
just
really
had to pay
don't. If you have a catastrophic, if you don't have insurance,
That's what I'm
and
saying.
something
Catastrophic-
catastrophic happens, they're gonna fix you, and then you don't.
you
have
pay
to
the 10,000.
But yeah, what I'm saying is
If
then
you
you
could, or
I'm
you
saying
could just
with
not pay it.
the catastrophic,
Like
then
a
you
lot of
keep
people
like
do.
you keep like the shitty people that go to the doctor for everything. You keep them basically. This covers nothing until you get over this amount, because then they're not going to try to go to the doctor. So then it keeps that pool
And
of
I don't
people
want- yeah.
to
I
be
don't-
healthier.
I
But you're
just-
basically pitching health.
Yes. I
So
don't
I-
want people to not go to the doctor if you have to. Like, I mean, if there's something happens, like if you break
yeah,
your arm, like
I think if
but
you have a
like,
policy like that, you're
there's
pushing
some
more
other
for
things
being
you can
healthy.
tackle,
Yes.
Right. So if you look at a couple of the big ticket items, at least on the medical side, is first of all, you have a fee for service structure in general, right? So if I'm a surgeon, there's very little outside of me not wanting to be a shitbag. There's very little quality control on what I'm doing, right? So if I do a total knee on you, it comes loose. I close up too fast. I don't really make sure that it's straight. You have pain. You come back a year later. Cool. I just do a revision, right? So your post surgery care, I don't have much tie to it, right? So it doesn't matter if I do a good job or, well, I'm saying it doesn't matter. There are some things out there where
Your
it really
referrals
doesn't
are going to go down.
right? But so there's very little tie in there because I get paid for doing a procedure. Same thing for doing MRIs, X-rays, things like that, right? So that structure fucks people because it's not based on quality of care outcome. It's I'm getting paid to do something essentially regardless for the quality. Now there's models out there in hospitals that are working towards changing that. So we'll just use your knee replacement. So your knee replacement costs $20,000 at the fee-for-service place. You go to this other place, it costs $23,000, maybe $24,000. But the surgeon gets some money up front for it. Then he gets the rest of it once he's demonstrated that you have a better outcome. You're doing your PT, you have range of motion, you have these objective things that you're accomplishing. So your patient result is better in these scenarios. So
Which saves them money.
Saves them money, saves you money, saves the pool money because now you're having less expensive. Maybe you have more, your frequency of low cost goes up a little bit. Your frequency of high cost goes down significantly. So in the end, it's a net negative in total cost versus your fee for service. Right. So that's one thing that we should be moving to and looking to accomplish. The other part is networks, where right now, say all four of us are a hospital system, or we're our own hospital systems. Blue Cross is going to come in and they're going to negotiate with all of us, right? And so Chris is like, hey, I'll give you 40%. You'll give him 60. I give him 42. And then you're like, fuck that, man. I'll give you 5% because I'm the bee's knees. Cool. All right. So everyone does that. Now UHC comes in. They do the same thing. They negotiate their own contracts. Aetna comes in. Cigna comes in. So all these carriers come into all the same hospitals and they negotiate all these different rates. So the cost to do business for that hospital is fixed, right? It doesn't change. It's just, can I get more money out of this insurance carrier to pay for things? That's why you see on your insurance bills, you see, here's your billed amount, here's your insurance adjusted amount, insured covered, or insurance covers this, your liability here. That also makes it pretty much fucking impossible to determine what the cost is going to be for you to go somewhere, which blows my mind that medical procedures, whatever it is that you're doing, one of the most expensive things people do regularly that they have no idea what it costs. Like there's no way to find it. Like you wouldn't go in and be like, yeah, I'll take that fucking Taurus. How much is it? No, I don't care. I'm just that's the Taurus, right? I need a Taurus. This is a Taurus. All right, I'm gonna buy that. And you have no idea what it is. Like no one's buying a car.
And then you
like
just
that.
get a bill like 6 months later.
Yeah, and then they send you the bill and they're like, oh, hey, so because you bought it at this dealership, it's actually $35,000. Well, my buddy just bought the same fucking thing down the street and it was $27,000. Well, fuck, man, you should have gone there, right? But if you get rid of networks, now I can call and I can be like, hey, what this is. You could publish averages on your website. Hey, the general knee replacement is $18,000, give or take, right? There's complications that can come up. You need different hardware. Some shit happens, whatever. But now, to your point, like if people are financially responsible, now they can see what that's going to cost and what that's going to be. And insurance companies are no longer negotiating that price to quasi get it down, but also kind of keep it inflated. Now they can work on that cost containment stuff, like following up, having disease management teams call people and be like, hey, Chris, you have a high blood pressure pill. You were supposed to pick up your script last Tuesday. You haven't picked it up. You all right? Do you want us, we can send it to your house? Like, do you need to see your doctor? And stuff like that. And now that's where the differentiator comes between the carriers is how well can they maintain their population and drive them to take care of themselves, drive them to do the maintenance things that they need to prevent these big catastrophic things from happening. Like those are two things that are like real potential solutions that we could and should be working towards that don't require a complete dismantling of the current system, but can have significant improvements, not only financially, but for the health of the population.
Is this your idea you came up with, or is this one that's in the works with insurance companies?
It's in the works and different. Like the network thing is one that you have to fight against the lobbyists for, because it's not the insurance companies that are the big lobbyists. It's the hospital systems.
That's where it goes again. I think if it's not,
The hospital systems are huge lobbyists. Pharmacy, fucking out of this world. So if you guys want to get really mad, on the pharmacy side, there's things called pharmacy benefit managers. They're PBMs, and they're just like forced middlemen to be in there. So if you are a drug producing company, I make drug X for blood pressure. It's a generic, and and I give it to whoever, your local small town pharmacy. Someone comes in and they want to buy that, right? They buy it from the pharmacy, but the pharmacy has a contract with the PBM who gets kind of the bundled pricing, because essentially the pharmacy benefit man, like they grab all this stuff, they negotiate rates and prices with the drug companies, and then they kind of act as this middleman to fuck everything over. So if you come in and you tell the pharmacist, hey, I don't have insurance, but here's what I need. The pharmacist is like, oh, cool. Yeah, that's $4. Here you go. Next guy comes in, hey, this is the drug I need. Here's my insurance card. He's like, oh, cool. Your copay's $10, and you pay $10 because there is a contract between the PBM, the pharmacy, and the insurance carrier for that price. It's now $10 when the real price could be $4, $3, $5. But because you have insurance and because there's those contracts out there with the PBMs, you end up getting fucked and they drive up the price. So that's super cool.
well, you heard it here. We're getting scammed. That was a very knowledgeable time we just had.
It was.
Matt used a lot of big words.
Mm-hmm.
That's all the big words I have. Like I'm out.
Yeah.
Thesaurus is emptied.
The thesaurus.
So, yeah. If everybody wants to get angry about insurance, you can listen to that, because we're all obviously angry.
Yeah. Or if you're looking for group insurance, ParetoHealth.com is a great source.
How many does the group have to be?
No.
Two?
Yeah, maybe. We're working to get down to that segment. Right now, we have to be north of 50 employed.
So two is
Just
pretty
for the
close.
States. Two's really close. I think if you get a couple more, you're in.
Do you offer catastrophic?
Depends what plan you want.
I want to pay
offer-
like minimal because I never go to the doctor.
Yeah, we can work something out. Have your people call my people, and
I'm talking to you right now.
yeah.
Okay. All right, guys, got anything else?
I don't think so.
So Chris is fat, and we're
Yeah.
all, hate insurance.
Yep.
Hey, hate's a big word, guys.
Well, 3/4 of us did.
All right, if you have any comments, concerns, or questions for Matt about insurance,
Yeah.
You can comment.
ParetoHealth.com.
you can comment on our page or YouTube's, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
But at least listen. Like, subscribe, follow all major platforms, YouTube's. Check us out there. We'll see you guys next time.